The Pac-12 has always been a conference that has been a training ground for NFL quarterbacks, dating all the way back to when it was the Pac-8 and the Pac-10. The schools that always have led the way are the University of Washington, Wazoo, which is Washington State University, Stanford, USC, and the University of Oregon. Are the Ducks about ready to plug another difference maker into their offense for the 2024 season? This is my take. The University of Oregon has produced some of the most iconic and most highly decorated quarterbacks in college football history. For sure, the Pac-12, Pac-8, and Pac-10 history. Oregon Duck quarterbacks like Norm Van Brocklin, Bob Berry, Chris Miller, Marcus Mariota, Justin Herbert, the iconic Hall of Famer Dan Fouts, and most recently, Bo Nix. And now comes Dillon Gabriel. The transfer from the University of Oklahoma shows up in Eugene with some very, very impressive stats and a whole bunch of talent. Dillon Gabriel, the 5'11", 205-pound senior-to-be from the great state of Hawaii. Dillon has been a transfer portal guy. This is his third team, and he came really, really close to being a UCLA Bruin. He enrolled at the University of Central Florida in 2019, and as a true freshman, entered that season as the backup quarterback. But in game one, in the first quarter, he was inserted into the lineup and never looked back. He started the final 12 games for the Knights and led them to a 10-3 record and a spot in the Gasparilla Bowl. And in that 2019 season, Gabriel threw for just around 3,600 yards and 29 tugs. That's a hell of a freshman season. As a sophomore in 2020, Gabriel again led the Knights to another bowl game, this time the Boca Raton Bowl. They didn't quite reach the 10 victory total the year before. They finished with 6 wins. But again, that's 2 solid years in the bank for young Dillon Gabriel. The next season in 2021 was a different story. In game 3 of that year against Louisville, on basically the last play of the game, he broke his clavicle, which is a season-ending injury for a quarterback, well, for any player, but it knocked him out for the rest of the year. So at the end of that injury season, he hits the portal and is headed to Norman, Oklahoma, to play for the Sooners in the Big 12. 2022 was his first year there. He was named the Big 12 Newcomer of the Year. The Sooners had an average 6-6 year, which basically tells you why they were playing in the highly coveted Cheez-It Bowl, but a bowl game's a bowl game. That leads us to this past season, 2023. The Sooners put up 10 wins. They went 10-2, and Dillon Gabriel was a huge reason for that. He was exciting to watch, and he led the Sooners to the Alamo Bowl. Now, in the 2-year Sooner career, Gabriel threw the rock for about just under 7,000 yards and an impressive 55 touchdown passes. He also ran the ball for about 700 yards and 18 more scores. So he was definitely a dual threat for Oklahoma. But this being the NIL and transfer portal era, he jumped in once again, packed his suitcase, and headed out to Eugene, Oregon. Now, going into the 2024 season, if Gabriel stays healthy, he most certainly will pass Hawaii's Timmy Chang to become the number 2 all-time passer in NCAA history. And he's got a shot at overtaking Case Keenum from the University of Houston to become the all-time leading passer in NCAA history. Gabriel's 4,352 yards behind Keenum, and he's playing in an offense and a system where he's got a shot to put up those numbers and become the all-time leading passer. So going into this season, I think the most interesting thing for me is going to be exactly how Oregon's offensive coaches use him. At Oklahoma, he was a dual threat guy. And what really jumped out at me watching their film is how many times they used him as the featured ball carrier in the run game. We're not talking about running zone read where, he's reading an unblocked defensive end to either give it to the back or pull it and run himself. We're talking about run plays where the running back was not involved at all. It was totally Gabriel, where they're blocking down and pulling a guy or two and he's up in behind that, or they're running QB draws. Okay, so it's going to be interesting to me to see if he does those types of things with the Oregon Ducks. I don't think so. I don't think it's their style. And as we'll talk about here in a bit, he's definitely built to run the ball. But I've always told my quarterbacks when they decided to pull the ball down and run, and I always made them slide because I said, you're one play away from our number 2 quarterback being the starter. And that's a scary proposition for any OC or any head coach. When your starting quarterback goes down, it changes your entire season. And so those guys get scholarship to throw the rock and make great decisions. And I think you're going to see the Ducks pull the reins in on Dillon Gabriel's run game and just have him sit back there in the gun and spin it. Okay, either way, Dillon Gabriel comes to Eugene with a whole bunch of skills. He's really an interesting quarterback and fun to watch. So let's dive into this and talk about the things that I really like about Dillon Gabriel's game. We'll start with the fact that he's left-handed. And as you all know, I love left-handed quarterbacks. Left-handed quarterbacks are cool. Okay, they're cool. And I say that with tongue-in-cheek, but I needed to get that out of my system. Okay, here's the real deal. He's got a hell of an arm. Okay, when he steps up and puts that ball on a 1, which is throwing it on a line, he has got some juice and gas behind his throws. He throws a really tight spiral, which means it's a very catchable ball for the receivers. But he can drive the ball downfield on those intermediate throws, those digs, those crossing routes, those corner routes, curls. When he steps up and zips it, that's exactly what the ball does. It zips. He's got a lot of juice in his arm. He also throws a great deep ball. So I'm a big believer when your quarterback's throwing outside verticals or post routes that they put air underneath the ball. I call it a 3. You put air underneath it. And the reason that you do that is because if you overthrow or underthrow your receiver, you're giving him a chance to make a play. If you overthrow the ball on a deep ball and you put air underneath it, your receiver can use his speed to catch up and go get it. If you underthrow it, he can slow down, slip that DB, and go up and high point the rock. But if you put it on a 2, in other words, you throw that thing flatter and you overthrow your receiver, it's game over. He can't catch up to the ball. And Gabriel puts a lot of air underneath his deep balls, and that's something that I really like about his game. Okay, he's got good feet. When he takes his drop, he's pretty efficient. He doesn't have wasted motion. I think he lands on platform pretty good. His feet are close or underneath his shoulders or close to underneath his shoulders where you want the platform to be. And so he doesn't get himself in trouble with his feet when he drops. Also, with his feet, he's got good pocket management. Whether that's shuffling back, climbing in the pocket, or going side to side, he's able to do that with a lot of poise to avoid the rush, or if the pocket's breaking down And he doesn't panic back there. So that's really a good skill for any quarterback to have. And Dillon Gabriel does a good job when things are breaking down. All right, Dillon Gabriel plays with a ton of swagger, and it's real swagger. You know, your teammates are going to know if it's bullshit, if it's just for appearance's sake. He plays with a ton of confidence and a bunch of attitude. You know, anytime that you make a big play and you're coming back to the line of scrimmage and you give a shoulder to a defensive lineman or a linebacker, that's a little message that not only are you sending to the defense, but you're also sending to your teammates that I'm the guy that you're going to follow and we're going to get this stuff done and score touchdowns and win. He's also very, very tough. Okay, now there's two areas in which he's tough and impressive. The first one is there are clips where he's in the pocket about ready to deliver the ball and he knows he's going to get lit up. Okay, it's a situation. I think it's really a big part of a quarterback's job description is to throw the ball and take a hit. In other words, your job is to deal the ball to the open receiver. And if you get popped after you throw it, that's part of being the big man on campus. Okay, not every quarterback does that, however. But if you watch Gabriel, there are snaps where there are guys coming unblocked on a wind sprint right at him, and he stands in there and delivers the ball, and then he tries to protect himself as best he can when he gets blown up. And that's QB toughness, and that's kind of toughness that you want from that guy back there. The other area in which he's tough is when he runs the ball. So there's not a lot of times on film where he slides. Okay, there are some snaps where he does slide, but he's usually trying to lower his pad level and get those extra yards. And he really smells the goal line and the end zone out when they're down there in the money zone. You know, he's not going to absorb too many hits down there. He's going to deliver the hit and move the pile going in his direction. So he's a tough kid. And again, that's another area with his offensive teammates, just like swagger, where that rubs off on those guys. With all the skills that Dillon Gabriel brings to the table, there's one part of his game that I really don't like that needs to be changed by the Oregon coaches. It's a glitch, and it's a muscle memory issue, because at first I thought it was just an Oklahoma thing that, you know, maybe they were doing this on certain routes. They were teaching him to do this, but then I went back and watched him at Central Florida, and he did the same stuff. And that little glitch is on the snap of the ball, if his key side is the left side, he turns his head to the right for the first step of his drop and then snaps his eyes to the side that he should be keying. Well, this is a major problem because as a quarterback, when you get the snap and your eyes go to the people that you are reading to determine who you're throwing the ball to, that process starts before you even take the first step of your drop. And so it's a procedure that you're processing that as you go through your drop, so that when you hit the end of your drop, you know where the ball is going and it gets out of your hand on time. Well, with him looking the other side for the first step of his drop, he misses that information that he should be receiving by not looking to the play side. So the problem this causes is when he snaps his eyes to the play side, he's got to pick up that defensive guy to key. He's got to process that stretch, high-low stretch or horizontal stretch that they've got with their routes. And the timing and the rhythm of the play is jacked up. And if you watch clips of him, there are times where he unnecessarily has to run the ball because he missed throwing it in rhythm and timing because his eyes and his head were not right. So this is a muscle memory habit that Dillon Gabriel needs to correct. Other than that, I love his game. The bottom line is Oregon's got a really interesting dude in their quarterback room this spring. And with his skills and Oregon's offensive scheme, it's going to be fun times in Eugene, Oregon this next season. All right, if you enjoyed my take here today, hit that like button. And if you like listening to my opinion and my take on playing the hardest position that there is in all of sports, the quarterback position, please hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below what you think about Dillon Gabriel and how you think it's going to shake down for him and the Oregon Ducks this year. Here's something else that I'd like to know from you guys. Let's take the last 5 years. In the last 5 years in college football, who were the big name quarterbacks that were either Heisman Trophy finalists, Heisman Trophy winners, high draft choices in the NFL in the last 5 years, record-setting quarterbacks, so on and so forth, that enrolled as a true freshman and stayed at that university for their entire college career? I know that Drake May and J.J. McCarthy did it in this year's quarterback class. Let's go back 5 years and see if we can get some names out there of other quarterbacks that did that. Remember now, we're in the day and age of the portal and the NIL, and you got guys bouncing all over the place. And so it's kind of refreshing to see a quarterback stay with a program his entire career. Okay, this is QB Unfiltered. And remember, always throw the ball short to guys who can score. See ya.